Okay, in this video we're going to go over common laws that handgun owners in Maryland need to know. I just did a recertification class for handgun permit for a concealed carry class, and I was kind of surprised, or at least not surprised, that some people unknowingly um, carried their gun and did certain things they weren't allowed to do. Even though we went over it in the first class, certain laws have changed, as you see on the bottom of the page, October 1st, but there's just certain things that people don't know. So we're going to go over it. There are certain common sense laws that we're going to go over. For example, drinking with a handgun, being highly intoxicated. You obviously can't murder someone with a handgun if it's not justified. Those are the common sense laws. You're going to see there's also a lot of laws in Maryland, which are not so great, not so common sense. But we're going to go over all of them. Okay, so all these number on school property. These have been laws for a while. So you're not allowed to carry a firearm, even if you have a handgun permit in certain places. One is on school property, which is going to be expounded upon in a few minutes. You can't be within 1,000 feet of a demonstration in a public place after a law enforcement officer advises you to leave. So you can go to a demonstration with a firearm, but if a police officer sees that you have a firearm, which he shouldn't because it should be concealed, and legally actually has to be concealed, and he tells you to leave, so you have to leave. Legislative buildings, so that's government legislative buildings. Aircraft. So number 5 confuses people in lodging establishments. So like hotels, but it says where the innkeeper reasonably believes that individuals possess property that may be dangerous to other individuals, such as firearms or explosives. So that does not mean you cannot bring a firearm into a hotel or a motel if that's how you ride usually. It just means if an innkeeper or an agent, basically someone who works at the hotel, like the manager says, you're being dangerous and you have to leave because you have a firearm, you'd have to leave. But if they never know you have a firearm and for some reason the police figure out you have a firearm, but you were never told to leave by the manager, that's not against the law. That's number 5. On dredge boats. So if you ever find yourself on a dredge boat, you wake up one day, you're drunk, and you're like, how did I get on this dredge boat? You should not have your handgun unless you have 2 10-gauge shotguns. I don't know. That's just a historical law from back in the day. It has something to do with some like piracy, some history of piracy in Maryland. Number 7, in or around state-owned public buildings and grounds. Okay, so any state-owned building. Why can't we carry guns in state-owned buildings? I don't know, but that's the law. On Chesapeake forest lands, state forests, state parks. So this is very common. Let's say you want to go hike in a state park. Let's say you're some, a petite woman who doesn't have such big muscles, and you want to go running in a state park or go hiking by yourself in a state park. You are not allowed to bring a firearm to defend yourself. So if there's a dangerous rapist walking around, they definitely don't have a gun because that would be illegal. But if they are going to try to overpower you, you're not going to have a firearm on you because that would be illegal. You cannot go on a hike in a state park with a firearm. Doesn't matter. That's very dangerous. Okay, obviously that's a horrible law. Number 11 over here, in-state highway rest areas, firearms should not be displayed or discharged. It means you can't just go shooting off your gun at a rest stop. It also can't be displayed. That's an old law because now you're never allowed to display your firearm. It used to be you were able to display your firearm. Okay, but this is not really applicable. It's not really going to come up. As long as you have a concealed firearm, you can actually go to a state-owned rest stop. And number 12, which was a community adult rehab place, rehab center. Okay, so if you can't go to rehab centers, these are talking about like drug rehab centers. 13 is child care centers. You can't go to your child care center to pick up your kid. So October 1st, 2023, so over a year ago from today, the Maryland legislature passed some more oppressive laws. So just historically, just so you know, there was a Supreme Court decision, the Bruin decision, which expanded gun rights. That almost anyone who doesn't have bad criminal convictions, serious criminal convictions, can get a handgun permit and can carry a gun. Once that happened, certain states, Maryland, New Jersey, California, other heavy Democrat states, decided, no, the Supreme Court said that we have a Second Amendment, and that you can't hold us back from owning firearms and carrying firearms. That is the law. So you can have a concealed firearm, a concealed carry license, but we're going to basically limit where you can carry. So you can have the concealed carry permit, but you can almost carry it, your handgun almost nowhere. So they enacted a bunch of laws to make sure we don't legally carry our guns. So number one is in preschool facilities, pre-kindergarten facilities. So if you have little kids, private, primary, secondary, or at school grounds, it says somewhere else, but it's also for public schools. So you can't bring it on private or public school ground. Number over here is healthcare facilities. You can go look into this, the actual, I have it brought up, what exactly a healthcare facility is. It enumerates it over here. So it's a bunch of different things. You can read it. It's a hospital, related institutions, which still, it's like some type of institution that still has like night care. So someone might stay there overnight. Ambulatory surgical facilities. I had to look this up in how you define this. I didn't just use Wikipedia, but I also use Wikipedia. But it's a place. It's medical facilities that there are like minor surgeries take place. So it's not just your doctor's office. That's number 3 over here. Number 4, rehab rehab facilities. So if you're injured, rehab offices or facilities. Number 5, home health agencies. 6, hospices. 7, facilities that provide radiological or other diagnostic imagery services. That's also considered a healthcare facility, a medical laboratory, and again, alcohol abuse or drug abuse treatment facilities. Okay, those are all under what we just did. Those are healthcare facilities. Seemingly from this, if you just go to a doctor's office where they don't have surgery, they don't have radiology or imaging services for other things. If you just go to a regular doctor where you just get your checkup, seemingly that's not considered a healthcare facility, and you would be able to carry a gun. Don't take my word for it. That's what it seems like. That's number 1. So they said all these places, basically schools, private schools, middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, you can't carry whether they're private or public, and also healthcare facilities. Okay. Number 2 is a person cannot wear, carry, or transport in government or public infrastructure. So it's basically all different types of government buildings. You can go through that yourself. So legislative buildings, government buildings, all different types of government buildings, you can't carry a gun. Number 3 is a person may not wear, carry, or transport a firearm in special purpose areas. So it says, what is this? So it's talking about stadiums. So not this one, the alcohol, we're going to get back to that. Skip that for a second. But stadiums, museums, racetracks, or casinos, video lottery facilities, casinos, you can't carry a firearm. Again, if you're going to the racetrack, why can't you carry a gun? Like, what's the logic behind it? I don't know. Because maybe you'll lose a bet, and then you'll decide to shoot everyone, and you'll shoot the horse. We don't know. Why can't you go to a museum with a firearm? I don't know. Because maybe you'll get really upset because it's such a boring museum that you start shooting everyone. These laws don't necessarily make sense. The intent of the law is just to limit your ability to carry a gun and defend yourself. Because obviously if someone comes to these public places, a stadium with lots of people, a museum with lots of people, a racetrack, a casino with lots of people, and they start shooting, since you want to not get arrested and you have a job and you don't want to lose that, you're not going to have your firearm on you and you're not going to have the ability to protect yourself. So these laws these parts of the laws are really ridiculous. I mean, obviously some places it makes sense not to be able to carry a gun, but these places, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Number 4, we're going to get back to, it basically says you can't, they passed in the law that you cannot carry a gun in any private place unless you had express permission from the owner or the owner's agent. We're going to get back to that because that would basically say any store, any private building, any home, you would have to first ask the manager. You have to call up the manager to your local, Giant, and they would have to give you permission to go out to carry a gun at the Giant, which basically means anytime you went out to do any errands, you couldn't carry a gun. We're going to get back to that because that's actually is not enforceable at this point. Number 5 is a person. It's connected to this, but it's a connection. It's a continuation of this previous one. Person where carrying or transport a firearm may not enter or trespass on property unless the owner or owner's agent has posted a clear and conspicuous sign. So it must say on the sign, it must have a massive sign in the front of the business or private property. We love gun owners, and you can bring a gun into our business. Or the person tells you specifically that you're allowed to carry a gun. That's what it says on the second bullet point. So obviously, these stickers are not very common. They wouldn't be very common. This law was so this part of the law was enacted specifically so you can't carry a gun almost anywhere. But again, number 4 and 5 are not enforceable right now. We're gonna get down to that in a second. And number, what's it called? Still, it's talking about state-owned stuff. Okay. On August 2nd, 2024, there was what we call a temporary injunction, which basically the law was challenged in federal court, and the judge ordered a temporary injunction. The courts ordered a temporary injunction, which basically means certain parts of the law are not enforceable because they were found to violate the Constitution, the Second Amendment. So they said that you weren't allowed to carry in locations selling alcohol. So if you went to a restaurant that sold alcohol, if you went to a bar, any business that sold alcohol, you wouldn't be able to carry a gun. Obviously, if you're robbing the store, you might carry a gun. But if you were in the store, you wouldn't be able to carry a gun. So that is not enforceable. That was unconstitutional. Number 2, private buildings or property without the owner's consent. That was number 4 and 5. So that's also not enforceable because that's unconstitutional. So you could go into private businesses. You could go to Giant with a gun. You don't need express permission or a massive sign that says "We love gun owners," which they put right next to their massive picture of a rainbow. And number 3, the thing about within 1,000 feet of public demonstration, you could carry. Okay, so those are the places. There's a lot of places, but it's not so many where you cannot carry a gun. So just to summarize, you can't bring it on school property. Can't bring it in government facilities. You can't bring it in special purpose areas, which is stadiums, museums, racetracks, casinos. You can't bring in healthcare facilities, which seemingly does not include like small little doctor's offices if they don't do surgery there, but it would include hospitals, places you go for imaging, and other places. Those are the places you can't carry. Okay. And also state parks. So state parks was always a prohibited place. State parks, which is a big thing. I know a lot of people, they told me that they didn't know this, and they've been going, hiking in state parks. They have their gun, which obviously it's a sensible place to bring a gun. You're in the forest by yourself with a lot of people around, and it's a place where things do happen, especially if you're not, a very strong physical person. It could be that you would get attacked there. So it's a sensible place to bring a gun, but it is against the law in Maryland. But again, if you're on a dredge boat, you could have your 10 gauge shotgun. Okay, there. Another thing that people don't know is that as of effective October 1st, 2023, you're not allowed to open carry a firearm. You're not allowed to open carry a handgun. It used to be you were able to open carry a handgun. They changed that October 1st. Again, does that really matter? Not really. You shouldn't be carrying, for a tactical standpoint, you shouldn't be open carrying a firearm. You want to conceal it. You don't want people to know you have a firearm. It makes you kind of almost a target. Well, people might rob you, come up and try to get your gun. You don't want people to know you have a gun. But now it's actually illegal to open carry. Why? I don't know. Because it makes people feel uncomfortable. So it has to be, it says, if you read it, basically you can have a handgun permit, you can have a handgun, but it has to be under within an article of the person's clothing. So it has to be under the clothing. It also implies that later on, so it does not include a momentary and inadvertent exposure of the handgun. So if it just comes up a little bit and your gun is exposed for a second by accident, you have to recover it, but that inadvertent exposure, that momentary inadvertent exposure is not against the law. It also implies over here that you can't have an imprint. So it can't even be clear that it's underneath your clothing, which again, printing when you conceal it's hard not to imprint at all. So seemingly that doesn't mean, hopefully it doesn't mean that police officers want to interpret that to mean that if I can see you have a little bit of a bulge, in by your waistband, that's against the law. I don't think it means that, hopefully. But it means it can't be clearly seen from under your clothing. So it's not enough just to cover with your shirt. It has to be where it's not clearly visible from underneath your clothing. Okay, that's that. And the last thing, which again, we actually arrest a lot of people in Baltimore City for, is people being under the influence of alcohol or drugs with a gun. So it could be, again, when is this most common? If you're just walking, to your friend's house and you're a little tipsy and you have a gun, probably you're not going to get stopped by the police. I mean, it could happen. Who knows? Depends where you're walking, what neighborhood, if there's a big police presence. But a lot of times it happens, you get pulled over for a DUI, you're driving drunk, and the police officer then finds out after they arrest you for DUI, in your car you have a gun, or in your waistband you had a gun. It was a legal gun, but now it's not legal. And you're getting charged with additional gun charges of being under the influence of alcohol. Which again, that's sensible. You should not be under the influence of alcohol or drugs if you're drinking. So that's that. So again, there's a few different ways that good legal gun owners can get arrested. Mostly the places where you are carrying under the influence of alcohol. Again, you shouldn't be driving, and you shouldn't be being around if you're really drunk. And also, if you can't open carry. People don't know that. I've seen people open carry. Hopefully, if you get stopped by the police, they won't arrest you for it. They just give you a warning because some people are unaware. Just as another thing, even if you're a security guard, you can only carry your gun openly, which I do not want to. While you're working as a security guard, it says over here, a security guard license under Title 19 of the Business Occupations article within the scope of employment. So if you're walking home after you finish your job as a security guard, seemingly that would be against the law. You'd have to conceal your gun.